I still remember the exact moment my world shattered into 1,000 silent pieces. It wasn't loud. There were no screams, no slammed doors, no dramatic storm raging outside the windows. Just the soft click of a hotel room door closing behind me, and the sound of my own heartbeat suddenly echoing too loudly in my ears. My name is Elena, and for 12 beautiful, foolish years, I believed I had built something unbreakable. A marriage that felt like home. A business we grew together from nothing. A life where every late night, every sacrifice, every shared dream had meaning. I was the kind of woman who loved deeply, quietly, and completely. The one who remembered how he liked his coffee on rainy mornings. The one who stayed up designing new collections while he slept. Because our fashion brand Lumina Threads was our shared child. The one who believed that loyalty wasn't just a word, it was the air we breathed. That evening, I had flown back early from a supplier meeting in Milan. I wanted to surprise him. Our anniversary was only 3 days away, and I had planned something intimate, just us, in the penthouse we called our sanctuary. I even carried a small velvet box with the custom cufflinks I had designed for him, engraved with the coordinates of the little cafe where we first met. But when I stepped into that hotel suite where he was supposed to be waiting for a business dinner, I didn't find him alone. There she was, my own younger sister, Sophia, the girl I had protected, supported, and loved like my own child after our parents passed. She was wearing the silk robe I had gifted him last Christmas. His hands were on her waist the way they used to rest on mine. And the worst part, they were laughing. Soft, intimate laughter that belonged only to lovers who had long stopped hiding. I stood there in the doorway, the velvet box slipping from my fingers and hitting the marble floor with a tiny, pathetic sound. He looked up first. His face didn't even register shock at first, just mild annoyance, as if I had interrupted a casual meeting. Then came the pity. Elena, you weren't supposed to find out like this. Sophia didn't even have the grace to look ashamed. She just pulled the robe tighter and said, in that sweet voice I had once adored, sis, you've been so busy with the company. Someone had to keep him company. In that moment, something inside me fell. Not broke, fell. Like a body dropping from a great height. Knowing the ground is coming, but help us to stop it. They thought. The fall would end me. They thought. Watching the man I loved and the sister I trusted destroy everything we built would leave me in pieces on the floor, unable to get up. But what they didn't know, what even I didn't know yet, was that sometimes the deepest falls don't kill you. They teach you how to fly. I didn't cry in front of them that night. I simply picked up the velvet box, turned around, and walked out. My heels clicked down the hallway like the last beats of an old heart. The drive home was a blur of city lights melting into streaks of pain. I kept replaying every moment, every late business trip. Every time Sophia had stayed over to help with the designs. Every time he had told me I was working too hard and should rest while he handled things. How long had it been going on? Months, years? By the time I reached my apartment, the tears finally came. Not loud sobs, but the quiet kind that shake your entire body. I sat on the floor of the walk-in closet surrounded by his suits. Our wedding photos still smiling down at me from the walls. And I let myself feel every shard of betrayal cutting deeper than any knife ever could. I was 34 years old, childless by choice because we had decided to pour everything into the brand. My entire identity was tied to us. Lumina Threads wasn't just a fashion label. It was the proof that love and ambition could create beauty in the world. Now it felt like the most expensive lie I had ever worn. The next few weeks were a fog of shattered glass and whispered rumors. News of our separation spread like wildfire in the industry. Friends I thought were mine suddenly became distant. Some chose sides without even hearing my story. Others offered empty condolences while their eyes gleamed with curiosity. The board of Lumina Threads called an emergency meeting. My husband, soon-to-be ex, Marcus, had already positioned himself as the visionary. He painted me as the exhausted, emotional wife who could no longer handle the pressure. Sophia, it turned out, had been quietly brought on as creative consultant months ago. Documents I had never seen showed her name appearing on key designs. They froze my access to certain accounts. They whispered that I was unstable. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, staring at the prenup I had signed so trustingly when we were young and in love. It protected the company more than it protected me. Marcus had made sure that every night I would lie awake, replaying memories like a film I couldn't pause. The way he used to kiss my forehead when I was stressed. The way Sophia would call me her hero when we were teenagers. And I worked 2 jobs to put her through college. How does the heart survive such a double wound? There were days I couldn't get out of bed. Days when the pain felt so heavy I thought it might crush my ribs. I stopped eating properly. I avoided mirrors because the woman looking back seemed like a stranger. Hollow eyes, pale skin, a body that had forgotten how to stand tall. But somewhere in the middle of that darkness, a tiny spark refused to die. It started with a single memory. Years ago, when Lumina was just starting, I had created a secret sketchbook. Designs that were too bold, too personal, too uncommercial according to Marcus. He had laughed gently and said, "Stick to what sells. Elena, we're building an empire, not art pieces." I had hidden that sketchbook away like a guilty pleasure. One rainy afternoon, broken and barely functioning, I pulled it out. My hands trembled as I turned the pages. The designs were raw, emotional, almost angry in their beauty. Flowing silhouettes that spoke of strength after surrender, of rising after being pushed down. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than pain. I felt anger. Clean, burning, clarifying anger. Not the screaming kind. The quiet kind that sharpens your mind like a blade. I realized something important. They hadn't just betrayed my heart. They had tried to erase my voice from the very thing I had helped create. So I made a decision in the silence of my empty apartment. I would not fight for the old Lumina threads. Let them have the name if they wanted it so badly. I would build something new from the ashes. Something they could never touch. The rebuilding was slow and painful. I sold what little jewelry I had left. I moved into a tiny studio apartment on the outskirts of the city. I worked freelance under fake names at first, designing for small boutiques while I quietly registered a new company, Phoenix Veil. I poured every shattered piece of myself into it. Late nights turned into early mornings. Tears mixed with ink on drafting paper. I hired a small team of young, hungry designers who had been overlooked by the big houses. People who understood what it felt like to be underestimated. There were setbacks. Investors who pulled out after Marcus spread quiet rumors. Nights when I doubted if I could ever trust my own judgment again. Moments when I saw Sophia's face on social media, smiling beside him at industry events, wearing clothes that looked suspiciously like my old designs. Each time the pain rose, I whispered to myself, they thought the fall would end us. But I'm still here. Slowly, Phoenix Veil began to gain attention. Not because it was loud or trendy, but because every piece carried an invisible story of women who had been broken and chose to rise anyway. The designs had a haunting elegance. Silks that moved like water over scars. Structured jackets that spoke of armor worn gracefully. Words spread in quieter circles. Women who had survived their own betrayals found something in my work that felt like recognition, like seeing their unspoken pain turned into beauty. Meanwhile, I heard whispers about Lumina threads, creative differences between Marcus and Sophia, declining sales, investors growing restless. The perfect couple narrative was starting to crack under the weight of reality. I didn't celebrate their struggles. Not yet. I was too busy becoming someone they would never recognize again. 2.5 years after that hotel room door closed, Phoenix Vale held its first major runway show during Fashion Week. The venue was intimate but powerful. An old restored warehouse filled with soft golden lighting and the scent of fresh roses. No flashy celebrities, just people who truly cared about the craft. I stood backstage in a simple black dress, my hair pulled back, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. The collection was called after the fall. Each look told a chapter of my journey without ever naming it. A gown with delicate fractures of silver thread running through deep crimson fabric, beautiful because of its scars. A coat that transformed from structured armor into flowing freedom when the model moved. A final wedding dress reimagined not as innocence, but as a woman choosing herself completely. As the last model walked, the audience rose in a standing ovation that seemed to shake the old walls. But the real moment came afterward. Marcus and Sophia had shown up. I had made sure they received invitations, front row seats, no less. Curiosity, arrogance, or perhaps a lingering need to control the narrative had brought them there. I watched from the side as they sat stiffly through the show. Sophia's face grew paler with every look that clearly carried the DNA of the designs she had once tried to claim. Marcus's usual confident smile had slipped into something tighter, more forced. After the show, they approached me in the private reception area. "Elena," Marcus said, his voice carrying that old familiar charm mixed with unease. "This is impressive, really. We should talk about collaboration." Lumina could. I looked at him calmly, not with hatred, not even with triumph yet, just with the quiet clarity of someone who had walked through fire and come out the other side. "No, Marcus, there is no we anymore. There never really was after that night." Sophia stepped forward, eyes glistening with what might have been regret or envy. "Sis, I never meant for it to go this far. We were just..." I raised my hand gently. "Don't. The words you say now don't have the power to rewrite what you did. You both chose to push me off the edge. You thought I would stay down there in the dark." I took a slow breath, feeling the weight of every tear I had cried. Every night I had worked until my hands shook. Every moment I had chosen to keep going. But I climbed. And while I was climbing, I stopped looking back at you. The real consequences had already begun unfolding weeks earlier, though they didn't know the full extent yet. Quietly, through trusted allies, I had gathered evidence of intellectual property theft, financial discrepancies, and misleading investor reports within Lumina threads. Not out of spite, but because protecting what was true mattered more than revenge. The authorities and certain key investors were already looking into it. Their empire wasn't collapsing dramatically with screams and fire. It was crumbling with the slow, inevitable pressure of truth finally seeing daylight. Marcus's face changed as he realized I wasn't bluffing. The man who once held my heart now looked smaller somehow, lost. Sophia reached out as if to touch my arm, then stopped. For the first time, she looked truly ashamed. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I simply said, "You thought the fall would end me, but it only removed the parts of me that were willing to stay small for love. Thank you for that, in a strange way. Because the woman standing here now, she belongs only to herself." I turned and walked away, the sound of my heels steady and sure. Behind me, the murmur of congratulations from people who valued real creation filled the room. Months later, Lumina Threads filed for restructuring. Marcus and Sophia's relationship didn't survive the pressure. The industry moved on, as it always does. As for me, I still design, I still create, but now every piece carries a deeper truth. That beauty born from pain has a different kind of power. I met someone new eventually, a gentle man who loved me without needing to own my light. But even if he hadn't, I had already learned the most important lesson. I no longer needed someone else to complete my story. The fall didn't destroy me. It revealed who I truly was when no one was watching. And that woman, she rose. She built. She forgave, not for them, but for herself, because carrying hatred is the heaviest weight of all. And I had already carried enough. If you're listening to this and your heart is broken tonight, if someone you trusted pushed you off your own cliff, please hear me. The fall is not the end. It's only the beginning of remembering how strong your wings truly are. You will hurt. You will doubt. You will cry in the dark. But one day, you will stand up, brush off the dust, and realize the view from where you're climbing is more beautiful than anything you left behind. They thought the fall would end us. But we came back. Stronger. Wiser. And finally, free. Thank you for listening to my story. May your own rise be gentle, powerful, and entirely your own.